Greg. "And it's about the way he's sweating and how you're acting so fucking cool you're practically whistling." Ted shook his head like he couldn't believe what he was hearing. Magruder opened the door to leave, but then he turned back and said, "Oh, I forgot those copies I made." Greg leapt to his feet and practically ran to the printer. He reached out to pick up the copies, and when he did, Magruder said, "No, Greg, don't pick 'em up like that. Pick 'em up without using your thumb." "We're dead," Greg said. "Absolutely dead. And did you have to talk to him like that?" Ted didn't say anything. He stood with his back to Greg, looking out a window. His office was on the 29th floor, and there was nothing but ocean as far as he could see, not one boat on the water. He'd never found the Atlantic Ocean, at least this part of it, all that picturesque. The Mediterranean, the Caribbean, the waters off Hawaii, those cobalt blue and turquoise seas, now they were lovely. But here, the water was most often a dirty gray-green, and that was on the nice days. "Ted, are you listening to me?" Greg said. "The guy knows something's wrong. He's going to tell Al." Ted Allen was the CEO of Indigo Gaming, which meant he ran the Atlantic Palace Casino in Atlantic City. Greg Porter was his head accountant, but called himself the CFO. Whatever. Ted turned away from the window and looked at Greg. He and Greg had attended UNLV, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, and they were both 33 years old, 6 feet tall, and tended to dress casually for work, sport jackets over polo shirts, tailored slacks, loafers. But that's where the similarities ended. Greg's dark hair was beginning to thin, and a ring of fat bulged unattractively around his waist, and lately he had stopped wearing his contacts, something about allergies, and had taken to glasses with tortoiseshell frames. Greg thought the glasses made him look intellectual. Ted thought they made him look like the number-crunching wimp that he was. Ted worked out every day, had broad shoulders, muscular arms, and a washboard stomach. He had a full head of reddish-blonde hair, wide-set blue-green eyes, full lips, and a nose that had been worth every penny he'd paid the surgeon. A woman once said that he looked like those Hitler Youth models who pose for Abercrombie and Fitch. He'd never been sure, though, if she'd meant that as a compliment. "Greg, sit down," Ted said, "and calm down." "Calm down? I'm telling you, Magruder, have you ever considered that this whole thing could be turned into an opportunity? An opportunity? Greg," Ted snapped, "quit repeating everything I say. Now sit down and listen to me. I have an idea." As Ted spoke, he glanced over at the diplomas on one wall, at his double degrees in business and hotel management. He was proud of those framed pieces of paper. His mother had been a bare-breasted dancer at the Flamingo in Vegas until her tits began to sag, and back in those days she'd also hooked a bit when money was tight. Now she tended bar at the MGM Grand and applied her makeup so heavy she looked like a clown. Good old Mom. But she had introduced him to Al, and Al had paid for his education. That Al now owned him, body and soul, was the price he had to pay. "I dunno," Greg said. "It might work, but it's risky. I think we should tell Al what we did, what that bitch did, and what you have in mind. I mean, it's a good idea, but we should come clean first, get everything out in the open. Al will listen to you, Ted. He loves you. He won't do something crazy." Ted shook his head slowly, not because of what Greg had said, but because of what Greg had become. In college, Greg was the guy you went to if you needed to buy a term paper or the answer key to an exam. He could get you pot, a fake ID so you could drink, and if your girlfriend got knocked up, he knew a lady who could take care of that, too. Back then, Greg had balls, which was why he and Ted had become friends, and why Ted had later hired him to keep the casino's books. But not anymore. These days, there were mustard seeds bigger than Greg's balls. Thank God he was a good accountant, though, or at least a better one than Magruder. "Greg, we didn't just lose the money," Ted said. "It's the way we lost it. Then we cooked the books. No, Greg, I'm not telling Al. I'm going to get the money back, and I'm going to get the project financed. I'm going to turn this whole fucking mess to our advantage." He was going to make lemonade out of lemons, as his dippy mother always said. But Greg just sat there, head down, looking like he'd just been told that he had colon cancer. Then he reached out to pick up a bottle of spring water.